So today, what are we cooking, and what are these ingredients that we have?
We are cooking 红烧猪肉.
Okay, so this is red braised pork, and we cook it in this kind of this big pot here. And the ingredients are very simple, like all of the in 30 minutes dishes. So what do we got here for ingredients?
You have today it's the pork sirloin.
Yep, this is. You got it on sale at the local market, and it's been in the freezer. We didn't thaw it, and this we think is a pretty typical setup for people who are cooking at home. They get home from work, and they just have to get something out of the freezer because they haven't been thawing it for hours and hours. This is an pretty ordinary brand of soy sauce. We get a big bottle, but you can always get a small bottle at any American supermarket. And then what are the other fresh ingredients that we have?
Scallion.
Yep.
Onions. 2
scallions, 2 onions. What's that brown
garlic,
thing? Garlic. How many cloves of garlic?
Garlic you could use, if you don't like too much garlic, you just use 1 or 2. And I like garlic, so I use 4.
Yeah, and that's the thing about all these recipes. If you like more of an onion taste, or like a little bit sweeter, or like more garlic, you can add some or take it away as the situation arises. Now, what are these 2 weird-looking things here? Are these special ingredients?
So this is ginger.
Yeah, it's ginger. So it's just like the shriveled end of a piece of ginger, and we're going to trim that down. And then what's that stuff?
Rock sugar.
Right, but what can you use if you don't have rock sugar?
You can use this like a mirin, but I think or like brown sugar, the coarse one.
Yeah, so you use brown sugar, but even if you don't have brown sugar,
you could use whatever sugar you have.
Yeah,
like a white sugar.
Yeah, use white table sugar.
Right, just a popular
style, and throw in some fresh vegetables and.
Yeah, you could do without, but I like to add more veggies.
Yeah, so we're using 1 tomato and 4 carrots, but you could actually use other kinds of vegetables too, depending on what you prefer. All right, so let's get cooking.
Okay.
So wash the scallion. Let it slip down there.
And you don't need to, it's going in. So garlic, crush it.
Oh, should we turn on the heat at this point too? Or wait?
Wait a little bit.
So trimming out the ginger here. It's kind of an old piece of ginger, so it's not that big. Just like the nub. But you cut off all the skin and the kind of the shriveled parts of it. And so you're left with a cube about 1 inch on each side. Slicing them into like 1-inch squares, maybe the thickness of a quarter.
All right.
Yeah, so these onions are being sliced coarsely. They're about the thickness of a pencil. The slices. Very quick to cook. Okay, so we're heating up these are La Creuset little pot there. It's going to hold about 2 pounds of meat plus all the ingredients that we're preparing right now. You put in about 2 tablespoons of oil?
Yeah. 2.
This is vegetable or peanut oil that we're using?
This is vegetable.
Okay.
You could use vegetable or any oil.
And we're heating it just below the hottest level, but we'll turn that down once it gets really warm.
Yeah, and then you can just throw it in.
So also the scallions, before you throw that in, the scallions you didn't really cut them at all. You just cut off the ends, and
it's just the flavor.
Just the flavor, okay.
And then later on, some people don't like it. You can pick it out.
Okay.
But pick out the ginger and the scallion.
Okay, so we just skin the carrots. Now we're slicing off the ends. And what did you just say about when to put the carrots in?
The very end.
Why is that?
Because you don't want it to become too soggy.
Right.
And I like to cut it like this, rolling, keep rolling.
And meanwhile, this has been going for about 3 or 4 minutes, maybe. This is the onion, scallion, ginger, garlic mixture. Heat is pretty hot. The pork is interesting because it's rock solid. We haven't thawed it at all. Haven't put it in the microwave or anything like that. And what does that mean for the water coming off of it? This is it
will produce more water, so you don't add water first, and then later on, after it's thawed in the pot, then you start to adjust the water.
Okay.
Today.
So it's so big.
Too big.
So we're just gonna
just
push it down. If it already is into pieces, that's fine too, of course.
The best is fresh, but since I don't like to thaw meat, I just let it thaw in the pot.
So it's a 1/4 cup. Is that about right?
Yeah, maybe.
Okay, so you just put in a 1/4 cup of the soy sauce. This is ordinary Kikkoman soy sauce. We have a big bottle, but you can just use a little bottle that you get down at the supermarket and measure.
I've never measured anyway.
Okay.
Let's try 1/4.
Okay, so 1/4 cup of beer. We're just using any beer we have. Something we got at Trader Joe's, but if you have can of Bud or whatever, Corona, just use that too. Or white wine, you said.
White wine or beer.
Yeah. And if you were in Taiwan or China, what would you be using?
It's a rice wine.
You'd be using rice wine, but that's much harder to get here, so we're not going to burden you with that. So this is about a tablespoon of rock sugar. I'd say it's probably less if you were using a granulated sugar.
Sweet. Yeah, it's less sweet.
Yeah, so it's probably about a teaspoon of ordinary sugar, or even less than half teaspoon of ordinary sugar?
Probably try half teaspoon first, and then if you think it's not, you like it to be a little bit sweeter, add a little bit more.
This is the tomato, yeah.
And if you don't have tomato, it's okay. You don't have to put it in.
We've done this recipe before, and usually do not have a tomato put in there, but we got some. We had one lying in the fridge, so we're just adding it.
Right, and then you could just cut it closely.
And kind of the philosophy is you can add anything you want to this. So let's say that we had some cabbage or whatever, we could throw that in later too. But in this case, we're just going to put in some tomato and put that in early, and that's going to kind of melt, right? The tomatoes. They'll add some fluid as well.
And then more veg.
Okay. So the meat has been in there for about 4 or 5 minutes.
At this point, and then you cover it.
Okay. So covering. The heat's on medium right now, but you're going to turn it down, right?
Yeah, medium. Medium. Stay at medium.
Okay.
Just don't let it
too hot. Okay, so it's been cooking for about 15 minutes now, the pork, covered up. We've checked it a couple times, but so now the pork, the sirloins, they've broken apart. It used to be a giant frozen mass, but they're finally breaking apart. You can still see the parts that are kind of red in the middle. So it's not cooked through by any means because it was frozen solid.
So you just keep the temperature still high.
Keep the temperature. Now,
like bubbling.
Like bubbling like that. Now,
but not fiercely.
Now the way that we did the liquid, it's actually perfect.
The liquid,
it's just covering it.
Just covering.
Right. So if it's less than that, you would add more.
Yeah, you'll add a little bit more, either water, or you want to add like wine or beer, or you could and add a little bit soy sauce.
Right.
And then at the end, when the meats are cooked, then you taste it to adjust the flavor.
Okay. Now one thing to note is that you only put in a 1/4 cup of soy and a 1/4 cup of beer, but there's a lot more liquid in there now. So where did all that liquid come from?
I think it's from the meat.
Yeah, so the meat was frozen.
It's frozen,
and so liquid is coming out of the meat and it's adding to that, but it's just right. But if you were cooking fresh pieces of meat, you'd probably have to add some more.
Add some more, because the liquid will evaporate.
Right. Okay, so this is about 40 minutes after we started. This is using frozen pork sirloin. We're just dumping the carrots in, and these are just going to cook for about 5 minutes, right?
Yeah, or depends on how you like it.
Yeah.
If you like it to be
softer, then maybe longer.
Yeah, and then just.
I think 5 minutes is good, considering this is pretty hot right now. So you can use a wooden spatula to break the pieces into smaller bits.
Let it cook through, and that's it.
And the heat's on medium right now. Okay. And we're just gonna
green beans, whatever, the veggie.
So we're gonna serve this on white rice, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Okay. And right in the pot too. Oh, actually, we cook the rice, bring it over to here, and then put it on top. Okay, good, cool.